It was an ordinary day on Earth, the kind of day when people went about their routines, unaware that everything was about to change. As the sun rose over cities and towns, something much darker was arriving in the sky. At first, it was a strange glint in the distance, a series of lights too bright to be stars. Within hours, those lights grew larger and clearer, revealing the shape of massive ships, each the size of entire cities, hovering silently above Earth's major capitals. The people of Earth watched in awe and fear as these ships, like something from a science fiction movie, settled into place above the skies. Across the world, news stations broadcasted the same chilling message. Attention, Earth. You have been judged. Your planet will be taken under the rule of the Galactic Empire. Surrender immediately or face complete annihilation. A sense of panic spread through every nation. Governments scrambled to make sense of what was happening. World leaders met in emergency summits. But there was no real plan. The aliens' technology far outstripped anything humanity had ever imagined. How could Earth fight back against beings capable of creating ships that dwarfed entire cities? John Harris, a former military strategist, watched the news reports with a mix of dread and determination. He knew one thing: Earth was not ready for this. As a child, he had read about distant galaxies and alien invasions in books, but those were just stories. Now, the impossible had become a reality. It wasn't just a random encounter. The Galactic Empire had specifically chosen Earth. The message was clear: surrender or die. John turned to his wife, Mary, who was sitting beside him, her face pale as she too watched the broadcast. "We need to act fast," he said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "If we don't find a way to push back, they will wipe us out." "How?" Mary asked, her voice shaking. "What can we do against something like that?" John looked at the massive ships in the sky, their metallic surfaces reflecting the sun's light. Despite the overwhelming fear creeping into his mind, he refused to give in. Humanity has always survived against impossible odds. We can't let this be the end. We need to get a team together. Scientists, military leaders, engineers, anyone who can help us develop a plan. Mary nodded. She knew the gravity of the situation. Earth was not just facing an invasion. It was facing extinction. But John was right. Humanity had always survived by finding a way when there seemed to be no hope. This time, they had to do the same. John contacted his old colleagues from the military and intelligence agencies. Soon, a small but determined team of experts gathered in a secure facility. There was Sarah, a brilliant engineer with a mind for innovation. Robert, a former Navy captain who had seen countless battles. Dr. Evans, a leading scientist specializing in energy weapons. And Maria, a skilled hacker who could crack almost any system. Together, they began to work. The first priority was to understand the enemy. The ships in the sky were enormous, each bristling with advanced weapons that could wipe out a city in seconds. No one on Earth had seen technology like this before, not even in the most advanced laboratories. The enemy, they realized, was far more advanced than they had ever anticipated. The Galactic Empire's broadcast continued, its cold tone echoing over the airwaves. "Your resistance is pointless. Surrender now, or the destruction of your world will be swift." John's team was silent as they watched the broadcast, knowing that each passing moment brought them closer to the end. The aliens had made their demands clear, and there was no room for negotiation. The Empire's power was undeniable, but John knew humanity had something they didn't: an unbreakable spirit. "Let's not waste any more time," John said, turning to the group. "We may be outgunned, but we have a fighting chance if we work together. Let's figure out how to take them down." The plan wasn't going to be easy, and there were no guarantees, but they had to try. After hours of brainstorming, they decided to begin with what they knew best: Earth's own military technology. They couldn't match the alien weapons, but perhaps they could find a weakness, something the invaders hadn't accounted for. John's mind raced with ideas. They needed to strike fast, before the aliens could completely dominate Earth. But every plan had its risks, and no one was sure which one would work. As the team worked late into the night, John looked out the window, his gaze fixed on the darkening sky. The alien ships loomed over Earth like silent giants. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders now. Whatever happened next, they had no choice but to fight. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. The following days were filled with tension as Earth's leaders and John's team worked around the clock to prepare for the worst. The alien ships remained hovering ominously above Earth's major cities. People across the globe lived in a constant state of fear, unsure of what would happen next. Every attempt to communicate with the invaders had failed. They weren't interested in talking. They were only interested in conquering. John and his team knew they had to act quickly. With limited time and resources, they focused on the most immediate option available: a surprise attack. But how could they launch an effective strike against an enemy with technology far beyond their own? They quickly realized that Earth's military had more potential than they initially thought. The aliens had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, especially in times of crisis. Robert, the former Navy captain, suggested they make use of Earth's existing military infrastructure in ways that hadn't been explored before. They would use unconventional tactics, small, fast attacks, designed to confuse and disrupt the alien forces. But there was another problem. Earth's weapons, though powerful by human standards, were nowhere near strong enough to take down the massive ships in orbit. Dr. Evans, the scientist, came up with a risky plan. They would target the smaller components of the alien ships, things like their communication systems and energy sources. It wouldn't be a decisive victory, but it would show the aliens that humanity wasn't just going to give up. Sarah, the engineer, worked tirelessly to adapt Earth's existing missiles and technology, modifying them to strike at the alien fleet's weakest points. Meanwhile, Maria, the hacker, used her skills to gather intel from Earth's satellites, scanning the alien ships for any vulnerabilities. It was a long shot, but John believed in his team's ability to find a way. The first strike came when Robert's team of elite soldiers, disguised in specially designed suits, infiltrated a small base on the outskirts of a major city. It was a risky operation, but it was their only chance. They used explosives and EMP devices to disable one of the alien communication relays. The strike didn't cause any serious damage, but it was enough to create confusion among the invaders. Back at the command center, John received the report with a mixture of excitement and dread. It was just a small victory, but it was a start. The aliens didn't react immediately, which suggested they hadn't realized the full scale of the threat yet. But they would soon. John knew the alien empire would retaliate quickly. He was certain that the first attack, while effective in some ways, wouldn't be enough to drive the invaders away. Still, it was the beginning of Earth's fight back. As Earth's forces regrouped, it was clear that the next phase of the plan would be even more dangerous. Sarah had worked out a way to modify some of Earth's older military vehicles to launch a direct assault on one of the smaller ships hovering above the planet. They would use precision strikes to take out critical components of the ship, hoping to create a domino effect that would cause enough damage to force the aliens to reconsider their invasion plans. But the risk was high. The alien ships were heavily protected by advanced shields, and Earth's weapons were still no match for their superior technology. They couldn't afford to fail. If this attack failed, Earth's only hope would be a full-scale retreat to underground bunkers, but that wasn't something John was willing to consider. "Are we ready?" John asked as he stood in front of his team, his voice filled with determination. "We're ready," Robert replied, his eyes sharp. "This is our shot. If we can hit them hard, we might just have a chance." Maria, sitting at a computer console, typed furiously. "I've hacked into their communications. We've got a small window of time when they'll be offline for just a few minutes. It's not much, but it's all we have." John nodded. "Then we move fast. No hesitation." The mission was set. Robert's soldiers would lead the assault while Sarah and her team would provide the technical support. The stakes had never been higher. As Earth's forces prepared for the attack, a feeling of unity spread across the globe. Despite the fear, there was hope. Humanity wasn't ready to give up without a fight. As the clock ticked down, John couldn't help but feel a strange sense of pride. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a fight for everything humanity stood for: freedom, resilience, and determination. If they succeeded, it would send a message to the Galactic Empire. Earth would not be conquered easily. With a final glance at the skies, John gave the order. "Let's show them what we're made of." The night was quiet, but the world was anything but calm. Earth's military had launched its first strike against the Galactic Empire. And now, as the alien ships loomed above, the planet waited for a response. John Harris paced back and forth in the command center, his mind racing. The attack had done some damage, but it wasn't enough. The aliens hadn't retreated, and Earth was still at their mercy. Then something occurred to him, a thought that had been bubbling in the back of his mind for days. What if they didn't have to fight them with weapons at all? What if there was another way to send a message? A warning so powerful, the Galactic Empire couldn't ignore it. "We need to make them understand," John said, suddenly stopping his pacing. "We're not like the other planets they've conquered. We may not have their technology, but we have something they can't destroy: our will." The room fell silent as everyone turned to him. His words were bold, and the idea was risky. Sarah, the engineer, was the first to speak. "How do you plan on doing that?" she asked, her voice skeptical but curious. "We've tried everything. A warning won't stop them. We've seen their firepower." John nodded. "Yes, we have. But maybe we haven't shown them who we really are. Maybe we need to show them something more." The team gathered around the table as John laid out his plan. They would send a message to the Galactic Empire, not just through words, but through an artifact, something ancient, something humanity had forgotten. An old, mysterious piece of technology, hidden away for centuries. John believed this artifact held the power to reveal Earth's true potential. The artifact had been discovered years earlier, buried deep within Earth's mountains. It was unlike anything ever seen before, a remnant from an ancient civilization. It had strange markings and an energy core that scientists couldn't fully explain. But John knew this artifact could do more than just provide power. It could be the key to humanity's survival. John's idea was simple: attach the artifact to a message and send it directly to the Galactic Empire. But it wasn't just any message. It had to show the aliens that Earth wasn't a primitive species waiting to be conquered. It had to be a warning they could not ignore. "Let's send them a message they won't forget," John said firmly. Maria, the hacker, was already at work, tapping away at her computer. She'd been monitoring the alien communication channels for days. It didn't take long before she found a weak spot in the alien systems. The aliens were using high-frequency signals to communicate with their ships, but there was a gap, an opening. If they could send the message through that gap, it might just be able to reach the Empire's command center. It wasn't easy. The artifact was powerful, but it was unstable. No one knew exactly what would happen if they used it. It could easily backfire. Still, they had no other choice. It was humanity's best shot at showing the aliens that they couldn't simply wipe Earth out without consequences. As the team worked together, tension grew. The clock was ticking, and the alien ships were still hovering overhead, waiting. Every second felt like an eternity. The artifact was placed in the center of the command room, glowing softly. It seemed almost alive, its energy pulsing with a rhythm that felt almost like a heartbeat. Finally, it was ready. Maria connected the artifact to the transmission system, and the message was set. John stood in front of the screen, his face grim. The message was simple, but its power was undeniable. "We will not bow to you. You have made a grave mistake. We are not weak. You will regret underestimating humanity." John gave a final glance at his team. They had done everything they could. Now they had to hope it would be enough. The transmission was sent. Seconds felt like hours. The silence in the room was deafening. No one knew if the message had reached the alien fleet or if it would have any effect. But John felt something stir inside him, an unwavering belief that humanity could not be defeated. Then suddenly, the air seemed to crackle with energy. The artifact flared to life, sending out a pulse that rippled across the sky. The alien ships responded. For a moment, there was nothing but static. Then, a cold, mechanical voice broke through. "You think your resistance will matter? You are no match for the Galactic Empire. Surrender or face the consequences." John's heart sank. The aliens hadn't been swayed by the message. They were still intent on destroying Earth. But then, as if they had anticipated the warning, the voice continued. "You will regret this." The message wasn't over. John's team exchanged uncertain glances. They had hoped for a different response, but what they had received was far from what they had expected. The aliens were not backing down. But even in the face of this, John knew one thing: Earth wasn't done. They had sent their warning. Now they had to be ready for what came next. John stood still, staring at the flashing screen. The cold, mechanical voice of the Galactic Empire had just cut through the tension in the command center, delivering their chilling response. "You will regret this." For a moment, the room was filled with an unsettling silence. The team, tense and nervous, exchanged worried glances. It was clear that the Empire wasn't going to back down. The warning hadn't been enough to stop them. In fact, the aliens seemed even more determined to crush humanity under their boot. "We knew it wouldn't be easy," Robert said, breaking the silence. His voice was steady, though his eyes betrayed the worry he felt. "But we've got to keep pushing." John nodded slowly, his mind racing. The aliens weren't just going to destroy Earth with a quick strike. They were methodical, cold. They would drag out the war if they had to, wearing humanity down bit by bit. It was a war of attrition, and Earth couldn't afford to lose momentum. "We're not going to let them take us," John said firmly, his voice full of resolve. "We've shown them that we can strike back. Now we need to prepare for their next move." Maria, the hacker, was the first to react. She quickly accessed the aliens' communication channels, trying to gather intel on what they were planning next. Her fingers flew over the keyboard, the screen in front of her flashing rapidly as she decoded their signals. "Hold on," she said. "I've got something." Her voice was low, almost as if she didn't want to believe what she was seeing. "They're preparing a massive assault, a full-scale invasion. They've sent orders to their fleet to move into Earth's orbit. This is their final push." John's heart sank. The Empire wasn't just threatening anymore. They were getting ready to launch a devastating attack. The aliens were about to bring everything they had to bear against Earth. And this time, the stakes were even higher. "Where are they attacking first?" John asked, his mind already working to figure out a plan. Maria scrolled through the data. "They've targeted the major cities: New York, London, Beijing. They want to hit the heart of Earth's governments and military forces. They're coming for the cities in a matter of hours." John felt the weight of the situation press down on him. Earth didn't have much time. He turned to Robert, his military advisor, his voice urgent. "We can't fight them on the ground. Not yet. We need to go after their ships first. We have to hit them hard before they can land forces." Robert nodded. "We have some small craft left from the first strike. If we can launch a series of surprise attacks, we might be able to disrupt their landing ships long enough for Earth's forces to regroup." It was risky, but it was their best shot. "We need every advantage we can get," John said. "Sarah, how fast can we get the modified missiles ready? I want to target their flagship." Sarah, who had been working alongside Dr. Evans on the alien technology, didn't hesitate. "We've made some progress with the reverse engineering. The missiles are ready for launch in an hour. They'll pack enough punch to take down a small ship." "We don't have an hour," John said, glancing at the countdown on the screen. The alien fleet was closing in. "We launch as soon as we can. Every minute counts." The team quickly mobilized. While Maria continued to gather data on the alien fleet's movements, Robert and his team worked on preparing the fighters and missiles for launch. Sarah helped with the final adjustments, ensuring that the weapons would hit their mark. Meanwhile, John knew the clock was ticking. If they didn't disrupt the alien forces now, they'd be at a disadvantage. The world was counting on them, and they couldn't afford to fail. As the minutes passed, the tension in the command center grew. John's mind raced through different scenarios. If the missiles didn't work, if the alien shields held, Earth would be left defenseless. It wasn't just Earth's cities they had to protect, it was the entire planet. The alien ships hovering above were too powerful. If they were allowed to land, humanity's last hope would be gone. Finally, the launch sequence was ready. John took a deep breath and turned to Robert. "Are we set?" "We're ready," Robert said, his voice calm, though the tension was clear in his eyes. "This is it. We're going to show them that they made a mistake." John gave the order. The missiles were launched, streaking through the atmosphere like fiery arrows aimed at the heart of the alien fleet. It was a desperate move, but it was their only shot. As the missiles raced toward the massive ships in orbit, Earth's forces held their breath. Would they make it? Would they finally land a blow that could turn the tide? The first explosion rocked the skies, followed by others. The shockwaves from the strikes echoed across the world, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The Galactic Empire was feeling the blow. But was it enough? Or was this just the beginning of a much larger war? The first missile strikes were successful. The alien ships, once hovering confidently above Earth, were now rattled. Explosions tore through their outer defenses, sending shockwaves that could be felt across the globe. The Galactic Empire had felt the blow, and the battle was no longer one-sided. Humanity had shown the aliens that they were not going to be pushed aside so easily. John watched the explosions on the screen, his heart pounding in his chest. The strike was a success, but the fight was far from over. The alien ships, though damaged, were not destroyed. They still had formidable defenses and weapons. The battle had just begun, and Earth had only one chance to keep fighting back. "We've hit them hard, but they'll retaliate," John said, turning to his team. "Get ready for their counterattack." Robert, standing by a bank of military screens, nodded. "We've got to keep the pressure on them. The fleet won't stay damaged for long. We need to strike again, harder this time." Maria, the hacker, was already on top of the communications network. "I'm tracking their movements. They're reconfiguring their shields, adjusting their weapons. They'll be ready to hit back within minutes." "Then we'll hit them before they do," John replied. "We don't have time to waste." "Sarah, can we deploy the second wave of missiles?" Sarah, the engineer, looked at him and then back at her terminal, typing furiously. "Yes, but we need to target their most vulnerable areas, something we missed the first time. I'm modifying the targeting system for the next strike." John nodded, trusting Sarah's expertise. Time was running out, and Earth couldn't afford to make mistakes. The alien fleet would recover quickly. Earth's window of opportunity was closing fast. Outside, the sky was darkened by the presence of the alien ships. The sheer size of the enemy fleet was overwhelming, and the sight of it sent a chill through every person on Earth. It was a reminder of just how dangerous the situation was. Yet there was also a fire that burned within every human heart, the desire to protect their planet and fight for survival. As the missiles were prepped for the next launch, John stood at the command center, watching the live feeds of the alien ships adjusting their shields. It was clear that the aliens were not going to let Earth have another chance without a fight. "We can't wait any longer," John said, determination in his eyes. "Launch the second wave. Now." The launch sequence was initiated, and the second batch of missiles shot into the sky. This time, they had more precision. targeting the weakest points in the alien ships, areas that had been exposed by the previous damage. The missiles sped towards their targets. At first, it seemed like the aliens were ready. Their shields shimmered, absorbing some of the impact, but not enough to stop the missiles completely. Explosions erupted across the alien fleet, the force of the blasts sending the massive ships into disarray. John's heart raced as he saw the damage unfold on the screen. The aliens were feeling the pressure, but just as the battle seemed to turn in humanity's favor, the alien fleet retaliated. A burst of energy shot from the lead ship, cutting through the sky like a deadly laser. The blast hit Earth's defenses, shaking the planet with an intensity that left everyone breathless. Buildings trembled, and people across the globe fell to their knees in fear. "We need to shield ourselves now," Robert shouted, looking at the growing threat. "Their weapons are more powerful than we expected." John's eyes narrowed. The aliens were adapting faster than they had anticipated. They were learning from every attack, adjusting their strategy, and countering Earth's every move. This wasn't just a war of firepower, it was a war of strategy, and the aliens were playing to win. "We're not done yet," John said through gritted teeth. "We've got one more card to play. The artifact. It's time." Maria's eyes widened. "You want to use it now? We don't know what it can really do." "I don't care. We need anything we can use to fight back," John replied. "If it works, it could turn the tide." Sarah quickly connected the artifact to their main systems, and the glowing object pulsed with an energy that no one quite understood. The ancient relic that had once been a mystery was now Earth's last hope. John stared at the screen, waiting for the impossible to happen. The artifact hummed to life, sending out a powerful energy wave. The ground beneath their feet seemed to tremble. It was as if the Earth itself was fighting back. The wave shot toward the alien fleet. For a moment, nothing happened. But then, an explosion of light and sound erupted across the sky. The energy pulse hit the lead ship, and for a split second, everything went still. John's breath caught in his throat as he watched the alien flagship begin to falter. The ship wavered, its shields failing as the energy from the artifact cracked through its defenses. The flagship began to fall, smoke and debris trailing behind it. The tide of the battle was turning. It wasn't over yet, but humanity had just shown the Galactic Empire that they were not to be underestimated. They had struck a blow, and the fight was far from finished. The aliens now knew what Earth was capable of, and that would make all the difference. The sudden fall of the alien flagship sent shockwaves through the entire fleet. For the first time, the invaders were scrambling. Their once pristine ships were now battered and weak, their shields flickering under the immense pressure of the artifact's energy wave. Earth had struck a powerful blow, but John knew that the war wasn't won yet. This was only the beginning. The alien fleet, now in disarray, began to regroup. The smaller ships, though damaged, were still a major threat. Their weapons had the power to wipe out entire cities with a single blast. Earth needed more time. Time to prepare for the final assault. Time to turn this fleeting advantage into victory. John stood in the command center, his face grim. The artifact had given them a temporary advantage, but it was clear that the aliens weren't going to retreat. They had learned from their mistakes, and they would fight back harder than ever. "We can't wait for them to get their act together," John said, his voice steady but urgent. "We need to press the attack now, while they're vulnerable." Maria, who had been monitoring the alien fleet's movements, nodded. "They're recovering faster than we thought. Their flagship is down, but they've sent reinforcements. More ships are arriving by the minute." "We'll make do with what we have," John replied. "Robert, get your teams ready for a ground assault. Sarah, I need those modified missiles ready for another strike on their remaining fleet." Robert, who had been waiting for this moment, stepped forward. "We've got a small window before their fleet regains full power. We'll hit them hard, fast, and we'll do it from multiple angles. They won't know what hit them." Sarah, working with Dr. Evans, quickly adjusted the targeting systems for the missiles. "We'll need precise hits to take down the remaining ships. We've got one shot at this." As the final preparations were made, the atmosphere in the command center grew tense. Earth's forces had no choice but to strike with everything they had. This would be their last chance to stop the aliens from launching a full-scale invasion. If they failed, Earth would fall, and humanity's survival would be uncertain. Outside, the skies were still filled with the ominous shape of the alien ships. The Earth seemed to hold its breath as the world prepared for the next phase of the battle. The ground troops were positioned and ready, the missiles locked and loaded. All they had to do now was strike before it was too late. "Launch the missiles," John ordered, his voice firm. The countdown began. The missiles shot into the sky, streaking toward the alien fleet. This time, they were aimed with deadly precision, targeting the weak points that had been exposed during the previous attacks. The alien ships tried to raise their shields, but they were too late. Explosions erupted in space as the missiles hit their marks, tearing through the enemy defenses. The alien fleet was in chaos. Some of the ships began to spiral out of control, their engines failing as the missiles breached their hulls. Others exploded in massive fireballs, their remains drifting through space like shattered glass. Back on Earth, the ground troops moved in, led by Robert. They had one objective: to neutralize the alien forces still on the ground before they could regroup. The streets of major cities were filled with chaos as the soldiers fought to hold their ground. Explosions rocked the buildings and gunfire rang through the air. It was a battle like no other, but humanity wasn't going to back down. "Keep moving. Don't let them regroup," Robert shouted to his team as they advanced through the rubble of the city. The alien forces were scattered, but they were still dangerous. Back in the command center, Maria had intercepted alien communications. The situation was dire. Despite their heavy losses, the aliens were calling for reinforcements. But the most alarming message came through just as John was watching the live feeds of the battlefield. "We've got a problem," Maria said, her voice tense. "The aliens are preparing something big. They're launching a final assault, a last-ditch effort to overwhelm us. We have to stop them now." As if on cue, Sarah stood up, a determined look on her face. "We can combine the energy from the artifact with the remaining military force. If we channel it directly at their reinforcements, we might be able to destroy them before they even land." John turned to his team. "Do it." The final weapon was set into place. The artifact, now fully charged, glowed brighter than ever. The energy pulse it emitted was more intense than anything they had ever attempted. It was their last hope. "Fire," John said. The blast shot from the artifact, cutting through the sky like a lightning strike. The energy slammed into the alien reinforcements, causing an explosion so massive that it lit up the night sky. The alien ships disintegrated in seconds, their remains falling through the atmosphere like shooting stars. The battlefield fell silent. The alien invasion was over. Earth had won. Humanity had delivered a blow to the Galactic Empire they could never forget. But John knew this was just one victory in an ongoing war. The fight for Earth was far from finished, but today they had proven that humanity would never go down without a fight. The battlefield was silent. The last of the alien ships had been destroyed, their wreckage scattered across the sky like broken pieces of a shattered puzzle. Earth had won, but the victory came with a heavy price. The cities were in ruins, and the scars of war were etched into the planet's surface. Humanity had fought and bled for this moment, and though the battle was over, the aftermath was still unfolding. John stood on the balcony of the command center, staring out at the horizon. The world was forever changed. The alien invasion had been repelled, but the damage was undeniable. The cities were destroyed, and millions of lives had been lost. Yet there was hope. Earth had shown its strength, its resilience, and its will to survive. "We did it," Robert said quietly, joining John on the balcony. "But at what cost?" John looked at him and then back at the horizon. The cost of survival. he replied. "We didn't just fight for ourselves. We fought for everything. For our homes, our families, our future." Robert nodded, his eyes heavy with the weight of their sacrifice. "We gave everything to protect this planet. Now we have to rebuild." Inside the command center, Sarah, Maria, and the rest of the team were already working on recovery efforts. The communications were back online, and Earth's forces were beginning to regroup. It wasn't just about winning the battle anymore. Now, it was about picking up the pieces and starting over. Sarah approached John with a serious expression on her face. "We've learned a lot from the aliens. Their technology, their weapons, the artifact. We can use this to rebuild faster than we ever imagined. We've barely scratched the surface of what we can do with their technology." John turned to her, surprised by the optimism in her voice. "You think we can actually use their stuff to help us?" Sarah smiled slightly. "Why not? If they're advanced enough to attack Earth, we're advanced enough to turn their own weapons against them. And who knows, maybe we can learn from them and make our world better. We can't let their invasion define us. We have to grow from it." John thought about it. The idea was risky, but it made sense. If they could learn from the alien technology, they could rebuild Earth stronger than before. It was a long road ahead, but it was a road filled with possibilities. "I agree," John said finally. "We'll need time, resources, and the best minds we have. But we can make it happen. We can turn this around. We can use their technology to build a future we've never dreamed of." Outside, the first signs of recovery were visible. Emergency crews were already working to clear debris, rescue survivors, and restore order. While the cities were still in ruins, there was a new sense of purpose. The people of Earth were determined to rebuild, to rise from the ashes of the invasion. They would not be broken. Maria stepped into the room, her face a mixture of exhaustion and determination. "We've got contact with the other nations. They're coming together. This is our chance to unite, to make sure we never face something like this again." John nodded. "This is bigger than just one country, one city, or one group. This is about all of us. Earth's survival depends on us working together. We can't let division tear us apart." In the days that followed, the world came together in ways no one had expected. Nations that had been at odds for centuries now worked side by side. Technology was shared, resources pooled, and the rebuilding began. Earth was united in a common goal: survival, growth, and strength. John found himself at the center of it all. He had become a symbol of hope, not just for Earth, but for humanity itself. The people looked to him, not as a leader of a single nation, but as a symbol of what could be accomplished when the world stood together. As the weeks passed, Earth's technology grew by leaps and bounds. The alien artifacts were studied, and the knowledge gained was used to repair what had been destroyed. The world was transforming, evolving in ways no one could have imagined. But even as humanity moved forward, John knew there was still work to be done. The Galactic Empire was not going to forget what had happened here. Earth had made an impression, one that would not be easily erased. The war might be over, but the fight for the future had just begun. "We've shown them we won't be conquered," John said to his team, looking out over the rebuilt city. "But we can't stop now. We've got to keep moving forward. We have to be ready for whatever comes next." And so, Earth began to rebuild. The scars of the invasion were still there, but they were no longer a symbol of defeat. They were a symbol of strength, of resilience. Humanity had fought back, and now they would grow stronger than ever before. The Galactic Empire had threatened Earth, but in the end, it was humanity that delivered a warning the universe would never forget. Earth would never be an easy target again, and the next time, they would be ready.